Hello and welcome to a little Figma tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to make the basic framework of a card for a physical card game design, and then how to use Google Sheets to sync that with the Figma file so that you can generate a spreadsheet and make cards much more efficiently than making them one by one. So to get started, going to make a Figma account if you don't have it. So I'm on a new email for that to show that process. So I'm going to go to Get Started, and you could create a new account using email password, but I'm just going to continue with Google. And this is going to create a new Figma account for me. And I guess there's a little bit of information. So let's see if, I guess you cannot skip it. So just do some stuff. And then you can create or add collaborators if you want, which is other people that you want to work with. But for now, I'm just going to be working by myself, so I can skip that. And then you'll choose the starter one, which is free and gives you as many projects as you want, but each project can only have a couple files. But for what we're doing, that's plenty. So do that. And we don't need to worry about that. And then what we're going to do is create a new team, and a team is going to be your project kind of grouping, which will help you organize each of your projects. So for this one, I'm just going to make a new thing and call it Figma tutorial Google Sheet Sync. And then skip the collaborators again and choose starter because it's free. And now I have a new project here. And in the project, the team, there's a team project. And then what you want to do is create a new design file here. And this is going to create a new blank canvas for the project that you can start creating cards in. So to go over a couple quick basics of Figma, Figma is a vector-based design tool that's often used for creating websites and mobile apps and things like that. But for our purpose, we're going to be using it to create card layouts. To start with that, I'm going to get a template for how big the card should be. And to do that, you're going to go over to a website called the Game Crafter, spelled like this. And the Game Crafter has different products here that you can use as a template. So we're going to go to the card section to show how to make a card game. And they have different types of cards here with different dimensions. For what I use Figma and Game Crafter stuff for is for poker decks. So I'm going to go to the poker deck here, and I'm going to get the template. And the template will show you the dimensions of your cards used for printing. So I'm just going to get this PNG. I'm just going to copy the image here. And then I'm going to go back to the Figma and just paste it here. So now I have this template, which is the dimensions of a card that if you're going to print it and submit it to the Game Crafter, then you would need it to be 825 by 1125. And then inside of this card, there's a little bit more information about the dimensions of where you should put your information so that it prints correctly when you would create a card. If you're creating a digital card, then this might not matter as much, but if you want to get your cards printed physically from maybe the Game Crafter, then you could use this template to ensure that your information on your cards won't be cut off. So we're going to be using this card as a reference for how big we should create different parts of our card and try to stay within the boundaries of that. So to start, we're going to just make a little frame, which is a way to hold kind of information in Figma. And you can do that either by clicking on this cross section and clicking this frame here and then dragging it around this card section, which would create the dimensions of what we need. And now you can see on the side that we have a frame which will hold information and layers about whatever this is going to be. And if we want, we can rename this. So the hotkey for that is either Control R or Command R, depending on if you're on Windows or Mac. We can just name this card layout. Another way that you can change the text, I believe if you double click on this, then you can also change it from there. So from here, we're going to try to create a layout that will fit some of this to kind of get started with creating a card. And then from there, we can go into how to sync that with the Google Sheets so that we can generate more cards kind of on demand with whatever information that we want to give it. So to begin, we can make a couple shapes to kind of help organize our information. So over here, there's a shape tool, and in vector tools, you're going to have some basic shapes like a rectangle, a circle, a line, or you can also use specific points. But usually, for me, I just use rectangles and circles, and that will make up most of the base layouts of information that a card would need. So we can start by using a rectangle, which is either clicking here or using the hotkey R. And what I'm going to try to do is create a rectangle around this red area, which would be kind of the border of the card. So one other thing I'm doing to scroll in and out is holding Control and then zooming in, or if it's Mac, Command and zooming in. And what I want to do is just kind of get the general shape of this to mimic that. And to help see better, I'm going to press the number 5 on my keyboard, which is going to make the opacity be 50%. And that lets me see the edge of the rectangle, but also see through it to kind of get more information. And then one thing to get these corners a little more rounded is Figma has a handy tool, which is this rounding tool over here. And you can use that to round the edges of your shapes. So if I drag this, then I can zoom it over and get it closer to that spot there. You can also type this manually if you want. And just to help get this a little bit more, I'm going to press Enter, which will enter the kind of positions of where the shape is generated from. So there's a little point here. And then I can use left and right to kind of help move it closer to the red border. So for this one, since it's just a tutorial, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you can line these up much more consistently to make sure that your cards are perfect for printing. So I'm just moving around and adjusting them a bit to get them pretty close to this red line. This is going to be the outer part of our card. And then we're going to repeat the same process. So I'm going to press R to make a new rectangle. I'm going to do another one for this dotted line on the inside. And then remember, you can press the number 5 to get 50%. Any number from 1 to 9 will change the opacity. So if I press number 1, then it'd be 10% over here. If I press 3, 30%, and so on. That's just a handy way to do it. Otherwise, you could manually type in the percentage you want here. So if I wanted 60%, then that would add 60%. And then same concept, going to try to round this a little bit. So this other one was 36, so let's try 36 again. And then if I press Enter, then I can move this a little bit. So I can tell from this that it's a little too rounded. So I'm going to press Enter again. Maybe make this like 20. That looks a lot better. And then I'm just going to move this out a little bit to kind of be on top of the blue part. So we're on the outer edge of it. And then do the same thing for here. And just do each side of these. Okay. And then a good practice is to name your layers. So this one is going to be the like card border maybe, which is the outside border. And this might be like maybe the card itself, or just call it like the inner card for now. This is stuff that you could name and organize in your own way that would best help you understand what your cards, which pieces of your card layers are doing what. So now we have the kind of where the information should be stored inside of the safe zone. And then the outer border is like what your card border is going to be. And then beyond that, we have just kind of the fill of whatever would kind of be cut from the printing. So from here, we could start actually making parts of our card. And then I'm also going to turn off this template part now since we don't need it anymore. So we've kind of gotten the initial pieces. So I can press this little eyeball here. That will get rid of the representation of that layer. So it's hidden now. So now we kind of have a template of a card overall. So we have the outer part, which could be your card border. So we can change colors through this fill part over here. And maybe we'll make this a little more gray to kind of make it more of a traditional card. And then we have this inner part, which could hold information. So maybe we'll make this a lot lighter. Maybe like some kind of yellowy tan color or something. So this is where you can do your own designs. And then next, a card probably will have a title or some kind of text. So there's the text tool here, which is hotkeyed with T, or you can also click this. So if you click this, you can either just click right away and start typing something, which would do that. I prefer not to do that because this doesn't create kind of the size of the text that you would want to create the bounds of. So if you did this again, if you click and drag, you can actually create how big your text is going to be. And this will help you position things more easily. And then here we named this the same thing, like title. Now when we click this title, it's this whole range of space. So that can help us contain text information so that it stays within this box if we want to with some of these properties. So to start, let's make this text bigger. And I just have a random font on, but yeah, you can use whatever font. It should work the same way. And then so I have a title here. I'll just put it somewhere else on the top. And then that's good for that. Then maybe this card will have some kind of value on the side, so we can make another text box. One thing you can do is if you hold Shift, you can keep the proportions of your box. So now it's like a square. So I'm trying to get 100. It's not quite, but I can change it here. And if you notice that the width and the height stay the same, it's because there's this link here. So if you didn't want your proportions to stay the same, you would unlink it. So if I wanted the height to be 150, now it's 150 because it's unlinked. But if I relink it and write 100, it's going to keep the width and the height the same. So I guess I have to change this one actually, but okay, it's not what I exactly meant, but it keeps it proportional to what the ratio already is. So if I want to set it back to 100, then I would do this. And so this can be helpful if you want to keep your dimensions locked, whatever you change the ratio of your width and height to. And I accidentally lost that text, so I'm going to do it again. This would be a number, like for your attack or something. So I can just stick it over here. And then another thing you could do to help keep this more centered and stay within the bounds is to do centered here, which will center a line. So there's left, center, and right aligned. And there's also top align, middle align, or bottom align. And that's where it is relative to the height. So this would be in the middle and the bottom. So it's good to do middle if you can for one line text. That will help if you change the number to another number, it will stay in the middle. But if it was, say, left aligned, and then we changed it to 4 or 5, maybe this distance might move the position relative to other information. So usually good to do middle if you're going to have a one line value of something. So this could be the start of a card. So we have the title, and then maybe this is like the attack value. And then maybe we also would have one more text box. So we can press the T key. Maybe this is like the description of the card. And for this one, we don't want it to be center because we want the information to be coming from the top left. And then we might also want to make this a little smaller, so we can Command A or Control A, and then change this down to a smaller number. And maybe just move it in a little bit just to keep it in the bounds. Also, if we wanted to, we could change the boldness of this. So some fonts will have a list of different weights that you can do. So maybe we want this to be bold for some reason to make it stand out. So from here we have a basic card layout with some information. Maybe we can get an image later and put it in the middle. But for now, this is just kind of some basics that your card might need. So now we can try to go to the Google Sync part of this and see if we can sync it up and get it to display some different information. So to do that, we're going to go to this Figma Sync part, which I've created a Google Doc and called it Figma Sync. And really what you need for this is to go here and have this shared, and then share this with anyone with the link. And we're going to need this link later, so can copy it and have it in the clipboard. I had a template for a couple of things here. I'm going to change this to attack since it's a different kind of game than I was making earlier. And we might not need a type yet, but I can see if there's a way to use that to show something. So to start with, we're going to need to change some of our variables in Figma to match the names of these. The top line here, this top row of information, is how the Google Sync is going to know which information is going to be passed onto the cards. So this name part is going to be maybe the title of the card. So instead of naming this one title, we can rename this one to be pound name. Make sure this matches the same as the sync capitalization. And then for this attack one, we can do pound attack. And then for the description text, I named it description. So we can do Command or Control R, pound description. So now when the Google Doc or the Google Sheet takes the information, it's going to look for these pieces and replace whatever's in the card with the names of these. To do that, we can give it some information. So let's call this like big dragon or something. Maybe it has like 9 attack, and then this dragon is very powerful. And then we can do one more. So we'll do like little dragon. It only has attack of 2. This is a baby dragon. Not too scary. So this is some examples of some cards. And then there's no type yet, but that could be used later on. So it's okay if some of your information is not in. Yeah, you can have a template here and then adjust your document in the Figma side to match that later. So we're getting close to making this working. To get this all the way functional, we're going to have to do something that's called creating a component. And what a component does is it creates a template for a card, which when you adjust that template, will adjust all future copies of it. And this is a good way to keep your information concise and consistent through whatever changes you do, so that all your cards will stay the same and you won't need to edit them over and over again. To do that, you're going to right click on the frame and then go down here. It's called Create Component. And then creating a component means that you make a copy of a card. So creating this copy means anytime we change anything that we would copy from this onward. So if we copy this and paste it, and then move the main one over, so now we have a copy. This is a copy of the card layout. So say we didn't want this title to be here anymore. If we adjust the card layout, the base one, so I'm going to move it down. Now all of the future cards that we've created that are copies of this component will move with it. So this allows us to redesign a card by adjusting one card, and every card copied out of that card will also be adjusted. So from here, the real magic is that now that we've created a copy of this card, I believe that if we get the sync and sync it up, that it should hopefully sync. And if it doesn't, then I have an idea of why it might not still. So I'm going to copy one more of these because we have 2 different cards so far. And one thing that I've learned is you should always copy the rightmost card that you've created from these so that it will stay from top to bottom. If you copy this card instead of this card, it might get out of sync. And I think that's just the way that the Google Sheets is loaded. So if we wanted more cards, we should always copy the last card that we created and make another one next to it. So from here, you're going to need to go to this part, which is how you get plugins. And you're going to look up Google Sync. You're going to get this one with the 2 arrows. And I believe there's a way to add this to your project permanently, but if you use the plugin, it'll still stay there as a plugin that you've used before. So now if you click run on this, we're going to need to get the information from before. So I'm going to get this share again, copy this link, and then paste it in here. And this will allow it to get that information and sync it on other cards. So I'm going to see if this works. If it doesn't, then I think I know one reason why it might not. So I'm going to check. So click fetch and sync. Okay, so it actually worked right away, which is good. So what is happening there is it's using the plugin to look through your file. So it's going row from each category through the rows. And then for each card that's a copy of that information off of this component, it's creating that information. So we had the big dragon with 9 attack and the text. The dragon is very powerful. And then we had the little dragon with 2 attack. This is baby dragon, not too scary. And we've created that here. Let's say we've played our game a bunch and now big dragon's too strong. So we're going to change this to 7 attack. And maybe the little dragon needs a little more attack. So we'll do that. And then we can change the text. So this dragon's very powerful, but it got nerfed. Boo. And then the baby dragon got a buff. So now that this is all saved, all we have to do is go back into here, run the plugin again. And then I think this is still the same one from before, so we'll see if it works like that. So just click fetch and sync. And it worked. So the information that we changed on the cards has now been updated. So the attack has changed and the text has changed. And then from here, if we wanted to make more cards, like I said, copy the last one that you've copied in from the component, so the rightmost one. So we'll just make a copy and maybe one more. And then we can just make a couple other ones. So we'll make like a medium dragon. This one will have 5 attack. I'm very medium. And then we'll make a huge dragon. This one can have like 100 attack. And this is OP. Why is it here? So now we made 2 more. So we have 4 of these and 4 cards. So then we'll just go to the sync. We'll run it again. Fetch and sync. And it made the new cards. And here we can see that the 100 actually doesn't fit. And to fix that, We can't actually edit the individual ones unless we unsync them from the component. But because we know this is a problem and might happen in other ones, we can actually go to this one, which is the original, and adjust this one. So I believe we can adjust it. Yeah, so I'm going to just adjust the width a little bit, and then we'll check this one. So now it fit. So if I undo, what was happening is this space doesn't fit 100 all the way. So if I write 100 in here, it doesn't fit. But we do want it to fit, so you can just drag this a little bit. So only needed a couple pixels. One way to do that with a hotkey is if you hold Control or Command and you go left and right, you can actually adjust it. So it's hard to see because the thing isn't showing, but if I go Control right, then it's adding some pixels. So I went twice. So originally it was at 100, so we just needed to move it 3 times to 103. Additionally, you could also change it over here by going down or up. Because it's linked right now, it's actually changing the height, so I'm going to unlink it. So if it was at 100, I could just go up, 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 and it's good. And now because I changed the width of this one, now this one is also fixed. And this also looks a little bit hugging to the right, so maybe I'll just double click on this, move it to the left a couple times, and now that one's a little more spacious. So that's stuff that you can play with to adjust your cards to make them fit better if they're having some problems with the space. Yeah, but hopefully that's a good introduction to how to use the Google Sheet Figma Sync plugin and how to create some basic cards using some of the core features of Figma, including frames, shapes, and text. From here, there's other ways to do more interesting things with the Google Sync, but I can get into that in another one if it seems like it would be helpful. So hopefully this was a good introduction, and hopefully now if you need to make something with Google Sheets and want to create some templates for cards, then you have a little path for how to do that. So thank you for watching, and there'll be more coming soon.